Hey everyone, and welcome back. Ready for a deep dive that'll have you thinking twice about everything you thought you knew about cyberstalking?
Oh yeah, this one is really something.
We're going deep into a case where the supposed villain is actually the victim.
And the victim, well, not so much.
This is one twisted story.
It really is.
A total tangled mess of lies and manipulation and a love triangle gone very, very wrong.
Oh yeah, this one's got it all.
Our main source today is a true crime podcast episode that breaks down
Oh yeah, I know.
this whole crazy situation.
Definitely a wild one.
But before we jump in, I want to just say up front that this case deals with some sensitive topics like domestic abuse and false accusations. So listener discretion is advised.
Good call.
All right, so let's set the scene.
Okay.
We start with Angela Diaz,
Right.
who becomes the target of some seriously scary harassment. We're talking death threats.
Oh wow.
Crazy messages with biblical stuff, even threats about her unborn child.
That's awful.
And it gets even worse
Right.
because then men start showing up at her house
Oh way.
because of these rape fantasy ads someone posted about her on Craigslist.
Oh my gosh.
Can you imagine?
That's terrifying.
So, of course, the police get involved.
Makes sense.
And they quickly zero in on Michelle Hadley.
Okay.
Michelle is the ex-fiancée of Angela's husband, Ian Diaz.
Right.
And on the surface, it totally looks like a classic case of revenge.
Oh, I see.
I mean, they had a bad breakup, fought over their condo, and Michelle had sent some pretty intense emails to Ian before.
Talk about all the religious stuff.
Yeah, like talking about God's vengeance and things like that.
Yikes.
Plus, when the police searched Michelle's computer and phone,
They found something.
they find emails, responses to those Craigslist ads, basically what they think is the smoking gun.
Wow. So it seems pretty straightforward.
Right. Open and shut case.
Yeah.
So Michelle gets arrested. Public opinion is against her.
Makes sense.
Case closed, right?
Yeah. Well, I have a feeling it's not that simple.
Not even close. This is where the podcast episode really gets interesting.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
It shifts perspectives, and we hear from Michelle directly,
What does she have to say?
and she completely denies everything. Says she's being framed,
Right.
and that she even tried to report all this weird activity to the police and the FBI before.
And they didn't believe her.
Apparently not. They didn't take her seriously at all.
Wow. So someone is setting her up big time.
Right. Which makes you think, how is it even possible to frame someone so thoroughly with all the technology we have these days?
Yeah, you'd think it would be easier to catch the real culprit with all the digital trails we leave behind.
Exactly. And as the podcast goes deeper,
Okay.
all these inconsistencies start popping up in the evidence against Michelle.
Like what?
Alibis don't quite match up.
Hmm.
IP addresses are traced to places she wasn't even at.
That's suspicious.
And the timing of some of those messages just seems off.
So it starts to look less like an open and shut case.
Oh, yeah.
And more like someone went through a lot of trouble to make Michelle look guilty.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then comes the real bombshell.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
Ian Diaz, the husband, confesses
To what?
to the whole thing. He admits that Angela, his wife, was the one who orchestrated everything.
Hold on. What? Are you serious?
Yep. It's a total plot twist.
Wow. That changes everything.
Right. We go from thinking it's a vengeful ex to realizing it's all about a manipulative wife setting someone up.
This is insane. But why would she do that? What was her end game?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And to figure that out,
Okay.
the podcast digs into Angela's past.
And
And it's full of red flags.
like what?
She's faked pregnancies before forged documents.
Seriously?
Impersonated Ian's other exes.
No way.
Even supposedly tried to pitch a TV show about her ordeal to Lifetime.
You're kidding, right?
Nope, it's all there.
This woman, I don't even know what to say. It's like she's living in a whole other reality.
It really seems that way.
But what about Ian? How did he not see any of this? I mean, fake pregnancies, come on.
That's a good question, and we'll get into that more later.
Okay.
But let's shift back to Michelle for a sec.
Sure.
The podcast digs deeper into her relationship with Ian,
Okay.
and it turns out it wasn't just some messy breakup like we thought at first.
And he was more than that.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
He was really controlling and abusive.
Seriously. So Michelle wasn't just some crazy ex.
Not at all. She was trying to escape a really bad situation.
Wow. So those intense emails she sent to Ian.
What, the ones that seemed so incriminating at first?
Yeah. Those
Well, that actually might have been cries for help.
cries for help.
Yeah, like her way of dealing with all the abuse she was going through.
Oh, wow.
It's really sad when you think about it.
Definitely adds a whole new layer to the story.
Right. And this is where it gets even more messed up.
Okay, I'm listening.
Because Ian didn't just control her money or who she could hang out with. He controlled pretty much every part of her life. Everything.
Yeah, like what she wore, when she could sleep.
That's insane.
Even pressured her into sex she didn't want.
Oh my God.
This wasn't just a controlling boyfriend. This was some seriously messed up coercive control.
And coercive control can be so damaging, you know?
It is. It's like a slow and silent way of breaking someone down.
Absolutely. And it often goes unnoticed because there aren't always physical signs.
Exactly. People on the outside just see dramatic breakup or think someone is difficult, but they don't realize the manipulation that's really going on.
Right, and that's why Michelle's case is so important. It shows how complex and hidden domestic abuse can be.
Absolutely. The podcast talks about how she was even diagnosed with PTSD after leaving Ian.
Oh, wow.
And those emails, those cries for help,
Yeah.
were kind of a symptom of that trauma.
That's heartbreaking.
It really makes you think twice about judging a situation based on just what you see on the surface.
Yeah, you never know what's really going on behind closed doors. So we started with a villain and a victim. Pretty straightforward, right?
Seeing that way.
But as we dig deeper, everything gets flipped on its head.
The villain is actually a master manipulator.
The victim is actually the one behind it all.
And the supposed stalker
is actually an abuse survivor trying to escape a toxic relationship.
It's crazy how quickly things can change when you get the full story.
It really is. This case is a reminder that the truth is rarely black and white. We got to be careful about rushing to judgment.
Absolutely. And we need to be more aware of the signs of coercive control and emotional abuse.
And be willing to listen to survivors when they come forward.
Exactly. Their stories matter. You know, it's crazy how Angela's lies affected way more than just Michelle.
Yeah, it wasn't just about framing one person.
It was like she built this whole fake world.
Where she was the victim all the time.
Exactly.
But how did it all fall apart? What brought Angela down in the end?
Well, from the beginning, her story had some holes in it.
Oh yeah, those inconsistencies we talked about.
Like those alibis that didn't add up.
And the IP addresses.
Right. Those were big red flags for investigators.
And I bet having Michelle constantly saying she was innocent helped too.
Definitely. Even with all that evidence against her.
Michelle never changed her story.
Right. She always insisted she was being framed.
And that, along with the weird evidence, made the investigators dig deeper into the digital stuff.
And that's where things got really interesting.
Okay, now we're getting techie.
A little bit.
And that's where I get lost.
Whoa.
So break it down for me.
Okay.
What did those digital forensics people do in this case? How did they find the truth in all that computer stuff?
So think of digital forensics like detectives for the internet age.
Okay.
They're like digital archaeologists digging through all the data to find hidden clues.
So it's not just about finding an email or a web search.
It's about seeing the whole picture, all the connections between devices.
The timing of everything.
The whole shebang.
And what did they find when they looked at all that stuff?
Well, a really suspicious pattern.
Like what?
Those harassing messages, the fake Craigslist accounts, even those emails to Ian.
Yeah.
All traced back to Angela.
To her computer or phone?
To places and devices connected to her.
Wow. So it wasn't just her story not making sense.
It was her leaving digital fingerprints everywhere.
That exposed her lies.
Exactly.
It's crazy how tech can be used for bad stuff.
Like manipulating and deceiving.
And then it can also be used to find the truth.
It's like a double-edged sword.
For sure. But in this case, it was the key.
The digital evidence was so clear.
Angela had to admit it.
She confessed and pleaded guilty to a bunch of charges.
Kidnapping, false imprisonment, perjury.
Even grand theft.
It's wild that someone could make up such a crazy and harmful scheme.
It makes you wonder what was going on in her head.
Was it attention, revenge, some kind of control thing?
It might be a mix of all those.
She always wanted to be seen as the victim, even if it meant hurting people.
Right, it's messed up.
But let's not forget about Michelle.
A real victim.
While Angela was dealing with the consequences.
Michelle was still picking up the pieces.
Even though she was officially cleared.
The damage was done.
It's crazy how false accusations can stick with you, even after the truth comes out.
They can ruin your reputation.
Your finances.
And really mess with your mental health.
Michelle had to start her life over.
It's hard to imagine.
And remember how Angela tried to pitch that TV show about her ordeal?
Oh, yeah, to Lifetime.
Can you believe that?
Trying to profit from all the pain she caused.
It's like she had no idea about the real harm she did.
Zero empathy.
It's really disturbing.
So Angela's in jail. Michelle is trying to rebuild her life.
What about Ian? Where does he fit into all this?
Well, this is where things get even more interesting.
Okay, lay it on me.
While Angela was facing the music, a lot of people thought Ian wasn't completely innocent either.
Including Michelle.
Right, they suspected he was more involved than he admitted.
His behavior was definitely weird.
Right. It's like, how could he be so blind to Angela's lies?
Especially with all those red flags.
Right.
So the podcast explores the idea that Ian might have been in on it.
More than he said.
Remember that blue wall of silence thing?
The code among law enforcement.
Yeah, but I'm still not totally clear on what that means and how it played into this.
It's complicated, but basically, it means police often protect each other.
Even when they do bad stuff.
Yeah, even if they break the law.
So are you saying Ian might have gotten special treatment from the cops because he was a U.S. Marshal?
It's possible.
That they ignored his part in all this because of his badge?
Michelle believed that Ian used his job to influence things.
To make it seem like it was all Michelle.
And there were times when the police didn't believe her or didn't think Ian was involved.
That's a serious accusation.
It is.
If it's true, it makes you wonder about the whole investigation.
And if there was corruption going on.
It shows how power can really mess with justice.
Michelle was the victim.
But she had to fight so hard to be heard.
And to get the truth out.
It's a reminder that justice isn't always easy.
Sometimes you have to be really persistent.
And challenge authority.
And believe in yourself, even when no one else does.
And Michelle did all that.
She never gave up.
She knew she was innocent and she was going to prove it.
Not just for herself, but for anyone who's been silenced by the system.
It's inspiring. It is.
But how did she get the investigators to look at Ian again? What changed things?
Well, she got frustrated with the investigation going nowhere.
Understandably.
So she did something bold.
What'd she do?
She sued Ian and Angela.
Whoa.
And the city of Anaheim.
For what?
For false imprisonment and emotional distress.
Wow, that's a big move.
It was a smart move, too.
How so?
By suing, she forced a closer look at everything that happened.
At Ian's actions, too.
Exactly.
That's really clever.
It was a risk, though.
Yeah, lawsuits can be a nightmare.
Expensive, take forever, and you might not even win.
True.
But Michelle was determined.
She knew she was wronged and she was going to hold him accountable. It was a matter of principle.
And it paid off.
Big time.
This whole case is like a legal thriller.
It is.
We start with the investigation.
Then the confession.
Then the victim fights back.
Then the lawsuit.
And now the focus is on the good guy. The cop who might be the bad guy all along.
It keeps you guessing.
It makes you think about what's really true and who you can trust.
And how power can really mess things up.
I need a minute to process all of this.
It's a lot.
It really challenges what you think you know.
And forces you to see the hard truths.
About people and the systems we live in.
But this isn't over yet.
There's more.
Oh yeah, the twists keep coming. Stay tuned for part 3, where we'll see what happens to everyone involved and the lasting impact of this whole crazy case.
This deep dive has been intense.
It has.
And we're not even done yet.
Okay, so we're back for the final part of this wild cyberstalking case.
Buckle up. This is where it all comes together.
We've seen the lies, the manipulation, and how Michelle got caught in the middle.
And now it's time to figure out what happened with Ian. Right. That lawsuit Michelle filed really forced everyone to take a closer look at him.
And what they found wasn't pretty.
So, spill the tea. What did they uncover about Ian?
Well, remember those digital footprints we talked about?
Yeah, the stuff we leave behind online.
Exactly.
Turns out, Ian wasn't as sneaky as he thought.
Nope.
Help me out here. Remind me again how those digital footprints work. What kind of stuff are we talking about?
Okay, so every time you go online, you're leaving a trail.
Like what?
Your IP address, what websites you visit.
The times you send emails?
GPS data from your phone.
Wow, it's all recorded.
Pretty much.
So even if you try to hide it, like use a fake name or delete your history?
There's still a way to see what you did.
That's kind of scary.
It can be.
So what happened with Ian? Did they find something?
Oh yeah, they found a ton of stuff linking him to those messages and fake accounts.
He thought he was being all slick, but he messed up.
He left a trail a mile wide.
What did they find?
They found evidence he used his work computer and phone for everything. Creating those fake emails, getting into Michelle's personal stuff.
No way!
Even responding to those rape fantasy ads on Craigslist.
Are you serious?
Yep, all to make Michelle look bad.
So he wasn't just tricked. by Angela.
He was part of it the whole time.
Wow, the protector was actually one of the bad guys.
It's a huge betrayal, not just to Michelle.
But to his job, too, right?
Definitely.
Makes you wonder about all those things we talked about. Abuse of power.
The blue wall of silence.
And how sometimes the people who are supposed to protect us
Are the ones doing the wrong thing.
So what was Ian's reason for doing all of this? Was he just loyal to Angela?
It's hard to say for sure.
Maybe he was scared people would find out what he knew.
It could be a mix of things.
Like what?
Control, being possessive,
Okay.
maybe even trying to protect himself.
Interesting. Tell me more about that.
Well, think about how Ian treated Michelle during their relationship.
He was super controlling.
Right. He had to control everything.
Her clothes, her friends, her money. So maybe he couldn't stand the thought of her being free.
Living her own life without him.
And by framing her.
He could punish her for leaving.
And maybe scare her back into his life.
It's possible.
Plus, there was that whole condo thing, right?
Oh, yeah. They were fighting over that.
So by making Michelle look bad,
He could get an advantage in court.
and keep the condo for himself.
It's pretty messed up.
So they finally figured out what Ian did.
Yep.
What happened to him? Did he get in trouble?
Oh, yeah. Big time.
What happened?
He was arrested and charged with cyberstalking, conspiracy, and perjury.
Wow. He went from victim to criminal.
It's crazy how things change.
So what happened at the trial?
It was intense. The prosecution laid out all the evidence,
All that digital stuff.
connecting Ian to everything.
What about his lawyer?
Tried to see he was just a pawn in Angela's game.
That's hard to believe.
It was a tough case for the jury.
Yeah, you have Angela lying about everything.
And then you have Ian, a cop, who seems like he's caught in the middle.
What did the jury decide?
They found Ian guilty.
On all the charges.
All of them.
Wow, justice was served.
It took a while, though,
Makes you wonder how many other cases like this are out there.
where the truth is hidden.
And people get away with things.
It's a scary thought.
This whole case really shows how important it is to think critically
To question what you hear,
and to be aware of manipulation,
especially online.
where information can be twisted so easily.
And it also shows how important it is to have a fair justice system.
One that can hold powerful people accountable.
Exactly.
Michelle's case is really inspiring.
It is.
It shows that you should never give up on fighting for what's right.
Even when it seems impossible.
Well, I think that about wraps up our deep dive into this crazy case.
We covered a lot.
We talked about the dark side of technology
The damage of domestic abuse.
and how complicated justice can be,
And heavy.
but really important.
What do you think the big takeaway is here?
I think it's that things aren't always what they seem.
We can't just believe the first story we hear.
We gotta dig deeper, ask questions.
Be open to the idea that the truth might be more complicated than we think.
Exactly. We have to think for ourselves, be good listeners.
And stand up for truth and justice, even when it's hard.
And even when things seem hopeless,
Michelle's story is about resilience, finding your strength.
and speaking out for yourself.
It's a powerful message.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone.
We hope you found it informative and maybe even a little inspiring.
Keep asking questions, keep searching for the truth.
And keep fighting for a better world.
See you next time.